Salman Khawateen Hazrat, welcome back to another episode of Thought Behind Things. आज हमारे साथ मौजूद है एक बहुत ही खास मेहमान. This is the last of our series from Lahore and from Systems. We have with us today Salman Wajid, who's the Chief Process Outsourcing Officer. Sir, thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm going to start the conversation थोड़ा सा really go back to your early life and beginning to understand कि एक तो ये कि where were you born and where did you grow up and schooling वगैरह कहाँ से हुई?
जी, I was born and raised in Lahore. और schooling मेरी I went to Crescent and did my senior Cambridge back in days. It was a new thing at that time as well. Then I did my FSc and BSc from Government College Lahore.
Right.
Then I went to Punjab University, did my MSc in Biological Sciences. And yeah.
Okay, that's a little surprising.
Yes, it is. Then I joined Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission as a research officer. I served there as a biotechnologist, as a genetic engineer. I worked there for 1 year as well.
In the 90s?
Yeah, I'm talking about 99 to 2000.
99. So you're working as a bio?
Yeah, genetic engineering. It was National Institute.
Wow.
National Institute for Biotechnology and Genetic Engineering.
What was that like? What were you doing there?
We were doing a lot of things. We were trying to cure the cotton leaf curl virus at that time, and we were trying to genetically reprogram it to be more resistant to cotton leaf curl virus.
Oh, cool.
I mean, that's the most simplest way of...
Do you think folks back there were able to do that?
Yeah, we were actually doing that. We were doing a lot of them. Yeah.
How exciting. You should probably talk to someone from the atomic energy as well. It's very exciting work.
It's very exciting, yeah.
But so you left after 1 year?
Yeah, I left after 1 year. And then I started, I went back to the school. I actually, started MS in Computer Sciences. And I was doing it from University of Central Punjab. It was PCIT back in days, known as, but it's now consolidated as UCP. वो मैंने कंप्लीट नहीं किया. उसके बाद मुझे ऑप्शन मिली एक बहुत अच्छी जॉब की during that my time. So I joined Align Technologies, which later became TRG. I mean, that was the beginning of the outsourcing and the contact center industry. So that's where the journey actually begins. And
just थोड़ा सा उसमें अगर मैं पूछूं, 2 सवाल हैं. पहला, you're a genetic engineer in the Pakistan Atomic Energy and suddenly you're like मुझे computer science पढ़ना है. और आपने से पहले computer science का आपका experience है?
Experience नहीं था, aptitude था.
Aptitude था. Yeah. And this is 2000?
For
time
2001.
Year कौन सा चला?
2001. Computer sciences, yeah.
And then you said that you didn't complete it. So was it because of the job offer?
Yeah, because of the job, yeah.
Okay. So you started 2001 चल रहा है, आपने start किया Align Technologies में, which later became TRG. What was the job like?
We were the product support executives. We were, let me dumb it down for everybody. We were contact center agents back in days, and that was the first time. It was a very high paying job.
Right.
I mean, we used to get paid around 24,000 PKR plus incentive. And back in 2000, 2001, 2002 actually, 1 and 2. I mean, that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, and we were not married. So, I mean, that's a kind of, it was a night job, and, the thrill. I know the best part of your life, you have money and you're enjoying what you're doing as something as well. And that was one of the most unique things to do as well. It was new. It was very challenging. It was something that nobody was doing, and it was not mainstream as well. So, yeah, so that's, and I think the leadership at that particular time was also somebody, they were very charismatic. Zia Chishti was somebody who was very, he was hands-on involved with all the people.
So Zia was a CEO from back in the day?
Yeah, he was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, from Align to TRG, and that's where it was conceptualized and perceived.
Right. And उस time पे जो call center का काम हो रहा था या customer उसका technical, what was the role?
It was contact center. It was more of customer services, order entry, and the whole 9 yards.
Right.
Standard work.
And focused on the North American market?
North American, yeah, US.
Right. How long were you there for?
I was there for 2.5 years, and then later on I joined Mobilink. Pretty much kept the customer services as where I wanted to excel. Worked there for almost 2.5, 3 years probably, and then...
This was in Islamabad or Lahore?
Lahore.
Right.
And then I joined Telenor in the same capacity. It was a lateral move actually. And then I hopped on to China Mobile, Zong. Right. That was 2008.
Right.
Worked there for almost 7 years. I was in Islamabad. I set up the complete contact center.
What were the roles in Mobilink and Telenor and then?
Mobilink, I was floor manager, and in Telenor, I was an assistant manager for operations. And in Zong, I was the head of the contact center and support center.
And you set it up also for them?
Yeah, so from ground up.
Right.
And when I left, there were like 2,700 people working in that division. 2012.
Zong has had,
Yeah.
but had 2,700 people
In 2 centers in Lahore and
for
Islamabad.
customer service.
Yeah.
Wow,
We were
that's
big,
insane.
yeah.
And you left in 2015?
2012. 2013 actually. And 13 I joined DGS, which is now Ibex Digital.
Right.
From 2013 to 2015, I worked there.
And what was that role?
I was executive director for sales operations. I was taking care of Pakistan and Philippine operations.
Acha, so they have multiple offices
Yeah.
in Pakistan and Philippines.
Yeah.
Acha, and I didn't know कि Philippines में because उनकी English similar है पाकिस्तान से?
No, it is not. But they have their presence, and there were certain regulatory requirements for certain processes to be executed out of Philippines, not executed out of Pakistan as a preference.
Right.
So
जब तक आप ये ज़ाहिर है कि this is a particular type of process outsourcing, right? It's call centers and very sort of human soft skills centric. 12, 13 जब DGS तक आप essentially यही वाला कर रहे थे, call center वाला कर रहे थे?
yeah.
And what about DGS? That was also call center?
DGS was also contact center. I mean, they're different business models. It's not so contact center is a tool. I mean, that's how you use it is totally based on what your outcome is going to be. So how you channelize the business model out of this whole thing is where I mean, for a customer services center like Zong, say for example, it's a cost, but for DGS it's more of a profit center because you're making money, you're making sales.
Right.
So it's a conduit, and you are just utilizing that as a tool.
Right. So it entirely depends on what the business model is for this particular thing.
Yes.
And so you were at DGS for 2 years.
2 years. Yes.
2 years, and then that's where you finally moved to systems,
Yes.
and you've been here for 6 years.
Yeah, in July 7, inshallah, if I yeah.
You remember that date?
22nd July. Yes.
Wow. And what did you join systems as?
I joined as a senior vice president for BPO, and I think that's one of the best decisions of my life. Working for systems, and we can talk more about it when we will talk about it.
Yeah. Tell me about systems then. You joined in as an SVP, and you were essentially looking after the entire BPO
existing
vertical.
BPO operations. Yes.
Right. And what do they look like? What are the existing BPO operations as of 2022? What are the different markets that you're servicing? कहाँ पे आपके लोग हैं? What does it look like?
I mean, that if you look at the canvas at that time, we were very heavily invested in the domestic operations, and हमारे पास जो एक बहुत बड़ा एक chunk था, we were doing digitization for our domestic public sector, which is land records के ऊपर हमने बहुत काम किया, and that was the legacy projects that were given to us, and we had good presence in the US as well, but more in the back office side of the things as well. Mortgage operations, title and settlement के ऊपर हमारी बहुत बड़ी presence थी. So these were the two major legacy operations that were handed over. इसमें they were very unique. We were geographically distributed in different centers as well. And जो आप land records का जो काम है उसमें आपको you have to create your outposts into remote areas as well. You have to have your presence in different cities. So I mean, it's to manage that.
So as systems, you have to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
How come? So I mean, my understanding would have been कि आपके पास सारा का सारा gather होकर आ जाएगा और फिर आप बस बैठेंगे और एक
because there are certain records that are not supposed to take out of that particular division of the seal, say for example. So you have to digitize it. So we just digitize there, we scan it,
so
and
you send in the teams, they digitize it, and then the rest of the work is sent back.
And we used to digitize it back in our office. We further process it for indexing and for OCR and the whole 9 yards.
And was the processing or rather the digitization, the step 2 of it, was it manual or was it image processing? Or
it was image processing and manual as well.
Depending on कितना पुराना है, कितनी handwriting, कितनी
readability, and then templates and the availability of the tools at that time.
Right. Were you guys able to use image processing for Urdu text as well?
Yeah, we tried that as well. Yes, we have some expertise in that as well.
how I mean किस हद तक वो कितनी एडवांसमेंट आ चुकी है उसमें, क्योंकि इंग्लिश तो आप पूरी दुनिया में बड़ा नॉर्मलाइज हो चुका है ना अब तो. iPads के ऊपर आप बस चीज़ टेढ़ी मेढ़ी भी लिखते हैं वो उसको सेट कर देता है. बट in terms of Urdu, are we anywhere close yet?
I mean, we are there, but it's not something that is going to blow anybody's head at this stage, I think.
Right.
But we are there. We've done that. It's there. But the usability and the practical application is not very good at this stage.
Right. Makes sense.
And the उसमें requirement भी आपकी you develop something and you work on something which has a future. Say for example, and if it's going to be sold, Pakistan की market के अंदर ही अगर आपने एक चीज़ को करना है तो then you don't pay much attention to that. You invest on things which are going to be
high value, na? Essentially. So it's like the amount of time that you're spending and how much in terms of dollar or in terms of premium you're getting out of it. Right now, what are you? So you're essentially saying there's the North American market and there's the Pakistani market. There's not a lot of BPO work for, let's say, the Middle East.
Yeah, correct.
Why not?
Middle East के अंदर basically उनकी outsourcing destination, preferred outsourcing destination is Egypt for Arabic and India for Urdu and Hindi. And it's something which we're trying to penetrate and see where we are relevant as well. But the scale is off to an extent that it's not matchable. So, but it's not that we've given up. So up at this stage, 2022, we are in US. We are very we are present in multiple capacities as well. And we have our presence in Australia as well now. We are servicing Australian market as well. And also we're trying to operate we have some presence in Europe as well now.
So growth area.
Yes, we're doing that. We're going
in terms of the sort of work, अगर मैं उसको डिवाइड करूँ तो डोमेस्टिक का तो आपने बताया इट्स लैंड रिकॉर्ड्स, और वो उस टाइम पे लैंड रिकॉर्ड्स था, अभी भी लैंड रिकॉर्ड्स प्राइमरीली है या और किस्म का भी काम है?
अब हमने इसको डिवर्सिफाई कर लिया बिकॉज लैंड रिकॉर्ड इज अ वन टाइम थिंग. यू हैव डन इट एंड योर the biggest scale was it happened with its all prime. And now we are in domestic market. We are on the e-commerce side of the things as well, and also in the contact center services as well for public sector and domestic. And in export,
when you उस पे वो करते हैं आपने e-commerce बोला, so what sort of processes are you looking at essentially, and what's the scale of the companies that potentially could be using those services?
E-commerce के अंदर I'm not sure if I'm at the liberty to speak about those, but one of the largest online retailers and the retail kings of Pakistan right now, we are servicing them.
So you're looking at like very, very large organizations, or rather the ones that are really rapidly growing, essentially.
Yeah, they have grown and they are the movers and shakers of the e-commerce industry.
And काम उसका मतलब वो जो किस किस्म के वो हैं?
End to end. I mean, so
customer service, order management, इस तरह की चीज़ें.
Yeah, website management. The order management, the complete transaction management, backend, after sales service, customer services, everything.
Acha, so it's a lot of operations essentially.
Yeah.
And interesting. What about international?
International में we have in US, we have क्योंकि देखें the one thing that I didn't speak about was that जब मैंने आया तो I wanted to diversify these digitization and the legacy operations were heavily non-voiced operations. Right. So because I came from a contact center background and I knew that the relevance and the presence and the need and the way it has survived the test of time from 68 to 2015, say for example. I mean, a lot of technology came in and went away, but the tool of the contact center as a conduit was always relevant, right?
Yeah.
So मेरे लिए ये बड़ा ज़रूरी था कि how I have to introduce the concept of contact center. So that's where I started working on, and that's exactly where I started off from for US as well. Initially, we had some success in customer services. We were managing some. So one of the few models for US were the sales models that we were operating at. We generate traffic from certain keywords through Google, and it would drive the traffic to our centers, and we closed them in our contact centers. I mean, so there were various models, and then we were managing monitored numbers for certain customers as well. So I mean, there was the outbound campaigns between. There were like services done as well. I mean, there was telephone answering services as well. So I mean, there's a whole bouquet of services. Then we have evolved to a true omni-channel contact center where email, chat, and WhatsApp is integrated, and the fraud management and how you have to handle customer queries based on wherever the touch point is. Then you have to make sure that he's reached back on the preferred touch point. So I mean that's the kind of so we have evolved from technology perspective and skill perspective as well. But generally speaking, our approach is very industry agnostic. We're not necessarily going after, say, health industry or retail or fashion apparel. Anything, because these are acquirable skills. Anything that is acquirable and you have the ability to do that, that's what we're doing. We just closed a very good deal with an Australian service provider as well, and we are working on alternate energy as well now. So
interesting. But mostly contact center and
mostly contact
customer
center
service and
yes.
Sanaki.
Yes.
Probably one thing that I'd be very interested in is why aren't we seeing a lot of and this is not just with systems, overall as an industry we're not seeing a lot of, let's say, data entry or data वो क्या कहलाता है आपका डेटा को वो क्लीन करना, या जो essentially जो AI, we talk a lot about AI, but AI के पीछे जो डेटा का बहुत बड़ा रोल है, जिसके अंदर you have a lot of this grand operational work, really going through a lot of this data, just identifying whether this cat image is actually a cat or not,
Right.
Or let's say training data basically, training the model वाला उसमें बहुत ज़्यादा काम आता है, या फिर essentially वो आता है कि आपका फेसबुक हो गया फॉर एग्जांपल, तो वो फिलिपाइंस या इंडोनेशिया में उनके बड़े बड़े सेंटर्स हैं जहाँ पर वो फॉर एग्जांपल व्हेन यू रिपोर्ट समथिंग तो वहाँ पर बंदा बैठा हुआ है, वो आइडेंटिफाई कर रहा है, दैट ह्यूमन इन्वॉल्वमेंट रिक्वायर्ड कंटेंट क्यूरेशन के अंदर, उस तरह की चीज़ों में. Why haven't we been able to break into that market? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, actually. We tried that, and I'm still trying to. I think that's something, I'll be very honest at this stage, that's something which is not my expertise at this stage. And this is something we must do because it's happening. And that is a very relevant requirement at this stage as well. हमें इस पे बहुत काम करने की ज़रूरत है और हमारे पास अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ भी होनी चाहिए. अभी जो आपने जिन जगहों के नाम लिए हैं, इसमें सबसे एक ईस्टर्न यूरोपियन, यूक्रेन एंड पोलैंड, देयर यहाँ पे भी बहुत ह्यूज डेटा फार्म्स, आपकी thousands and thousands of seats, and the image processing and image annotation. All these people, they're doing that, and there's a huge requirement of that as well. So uske we were trying to make some inroads on that as well. It's because anything that can be sent to back office is where the outsourcing come into play.
Right.
So from conventionalism to how relevant you are to the market needs is where we come in, and we need to stay relevant with the market needs as well. Right. Because the conventional stuff is going to be there all the time, and but how you are going to make sure that you're creating more blue oceans and you're more relevant to the customer requirement and the industry requirements. That's where we're trying to make some inroads as well.
Right. Do you think the Ukraine crisis is an opportunity essentially? Because it's very morbid of me to say, but
yes, it has. We are also trying to see that because the actual customer is sitting on the western side of the Europe, right?
Right.
So and they're getting the services from the eastern side. So we're trying to
break into that as well.
Yeah.
Right, makes sense. थोड़ा सा मैं ओवरऑल इंडस्ट्री के उस पर आऊँगा. हाउ हैव यू सीन द इंडस्ट्री ग्रो? एक तो ये बात है ना कि ठीक है, प्रॉब्ली फर्स्ट 10-12 ईयर्स के अंदर आपके पास TRG एंड सिस्टम्स एंड ऑल ऑफ दीज कंपनीज केम इन एंड दे वर एबल टू बिल्ड सम सॉर्ट ऑफ ए फुटप्रिंट. But then for the longest time we didn't see के 50,000 बंदे का सेटअप बन जाए. इंडिया में होता है इस तरह का, और भी बहुत सारी कंट्रीज़ में होता है. हमारे BPO के पास वो यही रहे. इट ऑलमोस्ट सीम्ड लाइक कि कोई बंदा है, वो सेठ आया, उसने कहा कि यार कोई 50-100 बंदे का लग जाए, मेरी ज़िंदगी संवर जाए, मुझे 5-8 लाख डॉलर भी सालाना मिल जाए. कोई प्रॉब्ली बाहर बैठा हुआ था, उसने कॉन्ट्रैक्ट लिया, वो थोड़े बहुत 4-5 कॉन्ट्रैक्ट से ज़्यादा वो लेफ्ट राइट उसने खेलने की कोशिश नहीं की. एंड सो while we were able to create some sort of something, but we're never able to create a very, very large industry, क्योंकि दुनिया में तो BPO in itself is a muggermuch, right? IT services तो उसके बाद आता है. But पाकिस्तान में BPO चल ही रहा था और फिर eventually IT services अब टॉप पे आ गया, and BPO is just something that's just there. So what's your thought process अगर आप इसको करें 2001 से लेकर 2022 तक 21 साल you've been here, how have you seen the evolution and growth?
Well, I think you have answered the question yourself. The state and what happens, and that's exactly what happened. And they were hustlers. They were not there for the long haul.
Businessmen neither.
Yeah. The arbitrage, it pays. It pays instantly. It gives good money if you know how to connect and how to send work back home. And people used to do that, and they used to make money, and they used to move on. That's exactly what happened. And then, unfortunately, I think I would not say unfortunately, but interestingly, the telecom boom also happened right at that point where the outsourcing started. So these two actually.
So international se focus thoda domestic ki taraf bhi aa
Yes,
gaya.
absolutely. And a lot of people were trying to see that, how they're, because at that time, जब हम TRG में थे, उस time पे एक Mobilink था और एक U-phone था. And I'm talking about 2001. It's not very far away. I mean, it's like 20 years still, but still, I mean, they were not supposed, they couldn't send an SMS to each other, U-phone and Mobilink. I mean, we've seen that age. So there were a lot of attention towards telecom instead of IT. And it was a new thing for us, everybody, and people were more invested implicitly and explicitly as well. So I mean, so that's where we lost track of a very good opportunity we could have capitalized on, and that's where exactly India did capitalize on, and Philippines as well, and Indonesia, and even now South Africa as well. So I think that's where we lacked, and eventually when the telecom reached its prime, and when the ARPUs they started to the average revenue per user they started to diminish, and the cost and the
tipping point aaya aur uske baad se jana
the competition kicked in, and they needed to make sure that the costs are minimized. They started to look for an outsourced partner, and that's where they've started to look. And they looked at what? TRG, they looked at OVEX, they looked at left, right, and center. So international, and then also I would say that our geopolitical situation is something that we need to that's a baggage we all carry, and we try to make sure that we try to that is my primary responsibility at this stage. Instead of bringing more business, I think that's one of my primary responsibility is to create a better image of Pakistan.
Right.
I mean, why not Pakistan? I mean, why is this still not a preferred outsourcing destination? What went wrong, and why is there so much skepticism based on the fact that Pakistan is not a preferred outsourcing destination? So these are the kind of taboos, and I mean, I would not say that this is something which is completely wrong when the world looks at us, and there are a lot of things that we have done to ourselves as well. But
wo to hai na, that's just part and parcel of who we are, and so
yes.
we have to
make sure. But so somebody has to take responsibility, right? So we need to make sure the world knows that we're the third largest English-speaking country in the world, right?
Yeah.
After US, India, and Pakistan.
Right.
It's Nigeria, and the fourth and fifth is Philippines. But how we position and what we can capitalize based on this information. How we can make sure that our business ethics are better than
the next one on the list.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the kind of things, and but the business risk and the geopolitical situation is something which also I'm talking about the mid 2000s, and
the post-war on terror, and then post Osama bin Laden, and then uske baad phir energy crisis. So now suddenly the cost overrun and the dollar, staying
the recession,
the recession.
2000. So it was
one after the other.
Yes,
and I'm surprised it's still alive.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's what it is. But the beauty is that it's a journey. It's something that we must, and we've been successful. It's not that I've not been successful. It's difficult. It's very challenging because you're trying to play in the league of big boys, and people would definitely say that why would go with you when somebody else is doing this for X minus $4 for the same work, and they're more reliable, and they have a strong foothold in this industry. You're just somebody who's coming up, vagara, vagara. But the value proposition and how we are going to do that, and all the customers that have opted for us, they've never looked back. We have 5 to 6 years. They've gave us testimonials. They have talked good about us, and they've helped us grow in this industry as well.
Right. But in 2022, what's the value proposition for someone coming to Pakistan, particularly in the process outsourcing?
It's pretty much the same that I've just spoken about.
Is it cost?
Cost is the last thing that I would say, but we have a very young resource pool. There are a lot of energy. 60% is almost what, probably you have the better stats. 60% is what, between 18 to 25. I mean, that's the kind
60%, essentially 63% is less than the age of 35, right?
Yeah. So that ballpark is, I mean, that's teeming with energy. You have to channelize them. And this is exactly what we're trying to do and bring to everybody's attention, that, somebody like China versus an aging population of, post 50s and 60s, we are a young population. And we are connected with the world as well. It's not that, we are hum darakton pe nahi rehte, patta nahi khate kind of situation going on with the world knows, but we are connected and we understand what the nuances are for anything to be get done. So I think our value proposition is a better work ethics. We have a very disciplined workforce, and unfortunately, not to say that, but it has worked to our advantage as well. That because of lack of general opportunities in the specialist section of the or the professional field, say for example engineering and medicine and whatnot. So people actually tend to look away and see that where else we can make some good money, and so that's where the good resources have also they're looking at it, that why not this. I mean, I had to convince my father back in days. He was a civil servant, and I had to convince him that and he was like very confused, said, son, what are you doing? So I was like, no, it's good. I know, I have a good feeling about it, and this is something that's going to grow. And
it worked out as well. ये आपने बड़ा अच्छा point touch किया, because a lot of times when we talk to particularly professionals से आप कहते हैं तो ये आता है कि यार call center, what's the future? What are you going to do with it? And so do you think there is a career trajectory there? Or do you think this is more of a transitionary role where you come in, make some extra cash and move on to the next one?
I mean, that totally depends on, what yours. I mean, the stickiness is something which, agar aapne Urdu mein bhi agar MA kiya, and if you want to go and become, if you have conviction, if you want to,
world famous poet, you could be a world famous
I mean,
poet.
the sky's the limit. I am an example. I'm in the fraternity, very, very small fraternity we have of contact centers personnel at this stage. But, we all of us, we have risen from the ranks. I myself, I was not somebody who was like, a simple graduate, but I've been there, done that. I did my MBA as well, by the way. So
That's I mean, the third master's, right? Essentially.
Yeah. And I also did CSS when I was I was doing my master's, so I didn't clear that as well. So I mean, so I had my set of achievements back in days. So it was not something that I could not do, but I gave this a chance. I mean, so the idea is whatever you want to do, you have to have that sort of conviction. But कोई ये नहीं सोचता बड़े होके कि जी मैं बड़ा होके call center agent बनूंगा. I mean, that's not an aim. That's not something. But once you have decided that as a career, I mean, there's no stopping. It's this whole.
But there is a career there.
Absolutely.
For those who want to.
I mean, yeah. I mean, look at my team. Look at myself. Look at the fraternity. Look at the industry. Everybody who is heading somewhere, some company at this stage has risen from the ranks.
Right.
ठीक है ना? So that's exactly what it is. And this pays. I think that's where you have to be.
थोड़ा सा मैं इस conversation को switch करूँगा, and I'd like your thoughts on the overall IT industry, BPO से हटकर. How do you see it's 2022? What do you think is going on right now? I mean, we talked about in detail about 13 to 18, or rather 2008 to 18, or maybe forever. But it's always been getting hit left, right, and center. The narrative is very different now. There's a lot of optimism suddenly. And it seems like across the board stakeholders are now beginning to take IT very, very seriously. And as a potentially serious candidate to be the largest exporter in Pakistan, in terms of the dollars coming into Pakistan. Mm-hmm. How do you see the IT industry right now? What's going on here?
I mean, we have a huge opportunity. I think pandemic, this is not going to be taken very easily by a lot of people, but pandemic was a blessing in disguise for us. I think that's what exactly happened to us. And it brought us to the limelight as well. देखिए उसमें होता ये है कि I'm going to step back to BPO again and for IT as well. I mean, because the relevance is there. There was a lot of opportunity when in US in particular, जब आपके पास resource scarcity kick in करती है, so आपके पास people look for options, and their immediate one-stop shop is India or the Philippines, say for example, and they have their own thresholds, right? ठीक है ना, and the pandemic was hitting there pretty bad as well. The good thing was that India, so we had the ability to actually immediately take on whatever the requirement was. Previously, people were not even looking at Pakistan as an option, but when push comes to shove, they wanted to know that yeah, Pakistan, okay, fine, now we have to get this done. Okay, let's give them a try, right? So जब इस तरह की situation आती है, and when they tried, when they looked at the kind of work that we do and the work ethics and the kind of delivery system we have in place and the kind of discipline and structure we have in place, and the kind of infrastructure to support their operations as well from an IT and from the services side of the things as well, they were like, wowed. Ki yaar, nahin, this is something we were missing on a gold mine. This was something we could have capitalized on back in days. So this was something that brought us to the limelight as well. फिर वर्क फ्रॉम होम के ऊपर भी हमने we moved very swiftly on to that as well. I mean, so whatever anything that is relevant to the need, we were up to that. हमने even in the BPO sector, we made sure that most of our team is enabled from work from home, and the business continuity was actually that worked as an anchor for our customers. They knew they were struggling onshore with the businesses, and then we were like supporting them, and we were not backing off. We had a very valid excuse that hey, we are in the same. I mean, this is the same disease that is affecting everyone. So we supported. So that what created. And India overall, they don't have the ability to. So Indian demographics is or Indian actually. So. India is a huge population, right? वो work from home नहीं कर सकते हैं because उनके एक छोटे से घर के अंदर they're like 13-14 people living there. So the work from home concept is very not different. It's very different from what we think of work from home. They can't, and that is where they were not able to
scale the same way that Pakistan could scale.
And meet the requirements. That's where we came in as well. So हमारे लिए I think coming back to so that's where we came into the limelight, and that's still something that people are thinking. हमारे लिए देखें जी बहुत बिल्कुल simple सी बात है. I think that's we are getting noticed. We are some people. Government is actually thinking of giving us and knowing like IT के बहुत बड़ा. It is not something which is done based on the kind of support we were given from the governments as well. It is something we have done for ourselves, and we came to limelight, right? ठीक है ना? So that's I would say that full marks to the leadership, especially its systems, because when you have a purpose, you know what you're doing, and you have an end game in mind. And when you come to limelight and you actually you've set new records every new month, so people would know that this is doable, and why did not we support these guys in the past? So we came to limelight, and then government came to support us, kind of situation going on, right? It's
very complementary as well. Like वो होना शुरू हो गया, and so that's what I'm wondering. What changed essentially? Because I remember I've been hearing this whole 5 billion, 10 billion since back in 2012-13. Depending on कौन सा phase है उस time पे तो वो number throw कर देगा. But it was always like 400 million, 500 million, 600 million, and then suddenly we saw we've broken the $1 billion mark, and it's like अच्छा शायद पता नहीं हवाला हुंडी रुक गया तो उससे सारा पैसा नॉर्मल तरीके से आ रहा है, क्या वजह है? But then suddenly it was like 1.4 billion, 1.8 billion, 2.2, and you're just scratching your head, what the hell's going on? And suddenly now you're breaking the glass ceiling of 3.5 billion, and now एक होता है ना POC होता है, proof of concept होता है कि यार ये हो सकता है. And so suddenly now people are taking it very seriously, and they're like, listen, it's not just 10 साल जब आप constantly कह रहे थे कि हम कर लेंगे, तो वो कह रहे थे कि यार ठीक है फिर पहले मुझे proof करके दिखा दो and we'll figure it out. My question is probably, अगर आप even BPO से बता दें कि how did we go, अगर मैं overall industry की बात करूँ 1 billion से 3.5 billion, was it the pandemic? Was it the extra demand that was created suddenly all over the world? Was it the fact that overall, globally, digitization is now at a tipping point where it's just becoming so absolutely massive that anyone who's connected to the digital world is, or rather in digital services wali side pe, wo automatically dividends le raha hai, and so this was a logical growth that we were going to see irrespective of whatever indicators? Or do you think was it economic factors where the dollar was allowed to flow easily, and so suddenly the cost became much better in terms of exports? What was it that change made this change happen?
I think all of the above. आई थिंक pretty much everything that you just mentioned. और इसके अंदर एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ ये है कि when there is a need on if there is an economic meltdown, or say for example if there is a global need to look for support, how ready you are actually. I mean, that kind of mindset is also needs to be there. If you are ready and somebody needs help, that's where the perfect hand in glove relationship, right?
Right.
So that happened, and the timing was very good. I think that's where there was a huge need. I mean, even right now. So what abhi bhi at this stage, what's going on is that in US there is a salary increase for low skilled employees.
They're struggling to find employees
to retain them, because for $20-25 पे अगर आपने एक बंदा रखना है to do something which is non-technical, they're trying to make sure that this cost has to be mitigated somehow, and it has to be offset. So this is a huge need, and whoever is ready is going to capitalize that. So that's where you are. So I mean, you have to be ready. And it did not happen in the past because the mindset, I would say, because my understanding is that everybody, whoever hustled into this whole thing, they came in, they
took the money out and left,
and they made real estate. I mean, they were so unsure about.
It was very rent seeking essentially. कि आए पैसा लिया और किसी ने दबा दिया कि बस आप पूरी जिंदगी आते रहे, काम ना करना पड़े.
हाँ, बस exactly. And because that seemed to be more safe investment, because they did not know what they were doing, and they were not sure of how they were able to sustain it to the next level.
Right.
Our leadership, actually, they made sure that whatever we are earning, we are reinvesting. I mean, that's a huge risk based on the kind of environment and the circumstances created around you. There are no number two players in even in the far side, right? And you are the clear-cut number one, and there's a huge responsibility on you. Whatever you are going to do, you will be the significant market player, right?
Right.
So, I mean, that's the kind of situation you have, and then you actually take all the bold steps. You reinvest. You go into the acquisition modes. You make sure that you are supporting the startups as well, and you are more relevant to what the IT needs are, and then you have your own training centers as well, because the demand is so much and so specialized to an extent that you can't totally rely on the education system to give you the kind of candidates that you require for your needs today.
Right.
So you have to make sure that you hire resources and you train them based on what your needs are, and then you induct them. I mean, so that's exactly what we are doing right now. So probably, I mean, Asif has spoken about it as well. I mean, so this is the kind of mindset, this is the kind of confidence we have right now at this stage, that that help us grow and understand, and that's the reason why we're growing. We're not reinvesting into something which is not relevant to our core. This is exactly what the kind of mindset everybody needs to have. And if this stickiness and this fraternity, if they grow in the same direction with the kind of impetus we have at this stage, I mean, we could be exponentially bigger than what we think at this stage.
Right. Do you think the lack of maturity in terms of leadership, was it also because of the fact that this was something new? Mostly it was new folks, मैं अगर देखूँ ना, I asked for all of the ages of your leadership, and I think barely anyone touched 50. And there's literally a 4-year का है, और वो पूरी team 45 से 49 के दरमियान में.
Right.
And so what I'm seeing is, and I've tried to do the same activity across the entire industry, and what I'm seeing is that we have like 45 to 50, depending on the size of the company. If it's a very large company, it's 45 to 50. If it's as छोटा जाते हैं तो वो 40 to 45, 35 to 40. And so I'm seeing nobody breaking the 50 year wala mark. And so clearly there was a lack of leadership. जो 10 साल जो 50 to 60 वाला होता.
Yeah.
Right? And probably that was because IT is such a new industry that you didn't have that sort of leadership to guide you through. And now we're beginning to have that in lieu of you guys, who are now beginning to provide that mature vision for growth as well. And someone rightly pointed out from within the systems team, they were like, in India, a lot of the conventional businesses who had the expertise of 20, 30, 40 years of experience or in business were the ones who came into IT services.
Right.
In Pakistan, it was mostly people from within the industry जो काम कर रहे थे. I mean, Asif Peer is just essentially started off as a software engineer, and he really had to grow up from the ranks, right?
Right.
वो डिफरेंस था पाकिस्तान में, जिसकी वजह से हम अगर चाहते भी तो वो विजन ही नहीं था, जो कि अब शायद इस वजह से आना शुरू हुआ है, बिकॉज वो you guys are essentially the first tier of जिसको मैं कह सकता हूँ large scale business gurus who have the understanding of what it's like to scale, and now we can potentially imagine the next 10 years of you guys setting up the big business as we see it.
Absolutely. I think I think that's I mean, I couldn't have said better myself what you've just said. Or the age side, I think that's the Gen X. If you look at where we are residing right now, we have seen the rotary phones to the big Pactel phones to. I mean, we have seen all those technological
evolution.
Yes, that was a revolution actually. I mean, so evolution is, I think. So I mean, we've been through all those stages. So I think we are more adept to change. We understand that it's inevitable, it is relevant, it is the only constant. So I mean, once you understand this and you make sure that you're not sticking to the principles of 80s and 90s, that that's the management principles of how to govern and how to make sure that this thing is going to be. So then you have a lot of options to grow and evolve into different. I mean, they're multi-dimensional, multifaceted approach towards a lot of things, and you're open to ideas, and you're open to anything which is more relevant, right? So this is where exactly the rightly said and rightly put, because we came from that particular time of last century, and that's exactly what is kicking in right now. And rightly said, because the leadership side of the things is where हम सारे ये सोचते थे कि यार नहीं हो सकता, because पाकिस्तान में कोई करता ही नहीं है, पाकिस्तान में किसी ने किया ही नहीं, तो पाकिस्तान में हो ही नहीं सकता. I mean, when you have that kind of mindset,
you're never gonna grow.
Yes, and now people look at us, people see us that they have surfaced as a clear-cut winner, and this is doable. This is something which is, I mean, the kind of hostile environment Pakistan gives, generally speaking, to a startup. ये तो अभी शुरू हुआ ना, basically. So आप कोई company register करवाने जाएं तो वो the kind of.
Oh, it's just. I mean, so insane. Not just a company, right? To open up a bank account, it's insane. Everything
absolutely, is just. Absolutely. So I mean, so from that to where we are right now. So I mean, so that's where people know that it's doable. When you know that's doable, and they see people progressing as well, companies progressing, that's where they get the confidence from.
Right. One of the major critiques to business process outsourcing and its future is the disruption that potentially can happen through artificial intelligence and stuff like that. And we've been hearing about that for quite a while now, and it's this scaremongering ke redundant, repetitive tasks are going to essentially be in the first line of
right.
The pawns in the chessboard.
Yeah.
How long have you been hearing that? And how much has that actually impacted, your work in terms of the sort of work that you get, and also probably one side question, because अगर मैं इसको wider करूँ तो जब tractor आ रहा था तब भी ये था कि अब तो इंसान farming नहीं करेगा, but humanity finds a way within the systems to create the newer jobs. And so do you think while in some cases automation might come in, it just might create a requirement for newer work? जो कि वो eventually, you'll probably keep on getting that growth that you require as long as you pivot.
I think that's very valid. This is a problem. This is a problem we are facing. Not a problem, actually a challenge we are facing. And this is inevitable as well. And this is something, like I said, that started the conversation, that when the pandemic was the best test case, we wanted to see that, when these AIs and the RPAs is going to kick in and it's going to take over and everything's going to become redundant. And it didn't happen. Right. And the core reason was not that because this is something which is not working. It works fine. I mean, we have seen e-commerce. I'm just going to sideline from the main question. E-commerce has seen an uptick in the year 2020 to 2021. We have seen that it went bonkers, and we were like, this brick and mortar is going to die.
And it didn't.
And it doesn't. The person you want to go and feel the product in your hand. You want to see it, and then you have experience of the mall experience. I mean, so I think that's exactly the same sentiment which goes here, and it can help us. I don't think that it's something which is going to cannibalize us, but I think This is something which is going to help us, not cannibalize us actually, and this is going to complement the services we are going to be providing actually. So see, अगर हम इसको अगर समझने लग जाएं कि ये आएगा तो ये खत्म हो जाएगा, या वो होगा तो ये खत्म हो जाएगा, या उसको नहीं आना चाहिए,
तो आप कुछ भी नहीं करेंगे ना.
You can't. I mean, you can't. You have to, like I always say, you have to stay relevant. It helps us. We have adapted it and integrated it into our current systems as well. ठीक है, हम काफी काम कर भी रहे हैं. I mean, there are like automated services that we are also providing. But that does not essentially mean it's not going to take out. Anybody who wants to see, the reason why it has taken so much attention in the US was because of the resources, quality, availability, and the cost. So they wanted to offset that with a one-time automation.
Right.
And that's where we come in, that, hey, why do you want to automate something when it can be personalized with a white glove service?
Right. So even if मैं कहता हूँ यार, ultimate automation आ भी जाती है, there's always going to be a requirement for personalization. There's always going to be a requirement for that human experience. That
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You need to speak, and it's not about the generations. I mean, it's not about the millennials or anybody. I mean, anybody. There are people there. They want to speak to an individual. They want to make sure.
And I mean, if anything, वही वाली बात है कि शायद customer service खत्म हो जाए, personal talk to a friend, helpline start हो जाए, because as more and more, Japan में आप देखें, they're super automated and they're hiring folks just to sit down and have lunch with them. So opportunity निकालने वाली बात है.
I mean, the one of the worst examples to give, the suicide helplines. So scope is never going to,
die out. You just have to pivot.
You have to make sure that you're relevant.
Right. How do you see particularly the IT sector over the next decade, now that we're seeing this boom? What's your prediction? What's going to happen in Pakistan with all the variables that you have right now?
I think we have an opening. I think I'm very optimistic. I think I'm very optimistic about the industry and ourselves as well. I think this can and will, inshallah, will grow exponentially. The government is supporting, and we have the right intent. We have the right leadership all along. I mean, so this is something, if all the variables are put, they're rightly juxtaposed. So this is something which should, I mean, God forbid if there is something which is not controllable. Apart from that, I don't think so that, the world has no reason for not looking at us and giving us a chance to excel. I mean, that's something that this is our time.
Right. And if I were to expand, and this is a question that I ask everyone, if I were to expand on this question and just ask you overall, you've been in Pakistan all your life.
Yeah.
You've seen it evolve over time. You probably saw the 80s, you saw the 90s, and then the last 20 years are in front of you. How do you see Pakistan over the next 30 years?
Well, next 30 years, I think that's a very broad question, actually.
I'm looking at 2050, actually, when Pakistan is going to be 100 years old. So that's why my 30 is some number close to my heart.
I think I'm going to give a very generalized answer to that. I think that's totally dependent on the kind of world the kind of country we are going to leave for the generation to come. And that is one of the things that I'm also working on very actively at this stage. Because, this is the fruits we are eating from the trees right now, they're sown by somebody else. So we need to make sure that this legacy is passed down to the next generation. What we are doing about it, and this exactly is the ballpark responsible for the Pakistan which is going to be in 2050. The generation we are going to raise. This is the kind of education we are going to give, and the kind of value system which is going to be cascaded down to the next generation is going to be what Pakistan is going to be.
Do you think we're able to do that? Or rather, your generation is able to do that?
I mean, there is a challenge, I would say. I'll be very honest. I mean, this is a little lopsided with the discussion we are, but this is a challenge. I mean, we have seen that the value system is different. It's not what it used to be. I'm not going to stick to the 80s and the 90s parenting style, say, for example, but it is different. It is a very confused generation which is coming into the picture in the next 10 to 20 years. They don't know. They're seeking answers. They're looking for immediate gratification, immediate satisfaction. They're looking for immediate answers, immediate results. I mean, short-term. What's the right word for that? Probably.
They're also not very culturally contextual, right? So back in the day, we were essentially raising a generation of Saudi Pakistanis, and now we're just raising a generation of Turkish Pakistanis and also American Pakistanis. And
yes, confused.
What are Pakistanis? Where are the Pakistanis?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's the element of nationalism is actually, you've seen the reason why, because, there is so much noise when it comes down to the religious sides of the thing as well, and when it's the political side of the things as well, and your alignment towards where you're standing in front of the world, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so
I feel like everybody's really numb. They're just like, hey, listen, we don't want to connect with anything, and so
yes,
it's just,
that's the isolation,
big ball of nothingness.
Absolutely, you're trying to cocoon every individual into something which is they want to cut themselves off, and they're not willing to listen to you because you're not making sense. And that is dangerous. So, I mean, this is where our responsibility is, that how we are going to make sure we open up to these guys and we make sure that this generation and generation to come, they are more ready to embark on this Pakistan that we are leaving behind specifically for 2030, if you are trying to, put that. So that's totally up to us. Now, if you want to, recoil and you want to zoom out and see what you are doing right now, you will have the answer. It's very simple. If you're not doing anything, so probably the expected outcome is that what you're going to leave behind.
Yeah. Do you think there's a, I mean, मैंने leadership एक build की थी 45 to 50 वाली, मैंने आपको बताई Generation X, आपने उसको rightly point out किया. Do you think that's missing from the mainstream? You're either seeing these boomers essentially getting to the, and I'm not just focusing on politics essentially.
Right.
हर तरफ से आपको जो है वो side नज़र आ रही है, वो narrative building वो ही कर रही है. Do you think maybe it's just not the right time? Maybe over the next few years we're going to see more of them. But what I see is the Generation X really disconnecting themselves from the mainstream, focusing on their own self, really sort of risk averse, saying we've seen some tough times and inherently a little bit more selfish as well. But जब तक वो आपको नज़र नहीं आएगी leading the way, because to be very honest, the millennial connects with them much more than they connect with the boomer. Right?
Absolutely.
So when they see you, for example, as a successful C-level executive sitting in a company, they're more likely to connect with you and see a path, their own path,
right,
sort of being jotted down versus what they could see with their father or उस तरह से. And so maybe it's what you show them, but मेरे case में तो ये होगा कि maybe it's you show them something, because right now it's completely invisible.
Absolutely. I think this is, you're spot on. That's exactly what the requirement is. And they can connect. I think that's more, I mean, the kind of, I mean, not a good example to give, but I mean, my kids, they listen to Led Zeppelin as well, because, I like it, say for example, but, they also like it, say for example, but, they know there's a connection. But, I make sure that,
pass on that culture as well.
Yeah,
there's a little bit of Bon Jovi there. There's a little
K-pop,
bit of
if my daughters listen to K-pop, so I mean, I'll make sure that I'm connected. I understand, what the I don't know what black, whatever it was, the black something.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I mean,
so that's there, and Led Zeppelin is there, and so there you find that synergy.
Yes, absolutely.
Where both sides can really compromise and begin to be
and
understanding of each other.
Yeah, and enjoy the same thing in presence of each other. Let's, you become more tolerable, right?
Yeah.
So this is the beauty of this generation, and that's just something which is so that's exactly, this is the reason why I say that there's a lot of responsibility on us. Yeah. And we need to make sure that this is passed on, this baton is passed on with the right intent. And we need to make sure that these people, they're sent to the future with the right arsenal.
Tools, and absolutely. That is beautifully put. Sir, thank you so much for coming in and sharing all that insight. And that was very, very insightful. I know that system is going to be huge. I wish you all the very best for what you guys are doing here. And I'm very excited to see where this goes. Thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And for all of you guys, thank you so much for watching. अगर आपको एपिसोड पसंद आया, अपने दोस्तों यार से जरूर शेयर करिएगा. यूट्यूब वाले लाइक बटन दबाएंगे, एंगेजमेंट बढ़ेगी, ज़्यादा लोगों तक हमारी कॉन्वर्सेशन पहुंचेगी. ऑडियो प्लेटफॉर्म वाले सब्सक्राइब करेंगे, आने वाली एपिसोड्स की आपको नोटिफिकेशन मिलेगी. फेसबुक वाले नीचे दी गई हुई लिंक पर क्लिक करके TBT कम्युनिटी ज्वाइन कर सकते हैं, जहाँ पर हम डिफरेंट फीडबैक भी लेते हैं, गेस्ट रिकमेंडेशंस भी लेते हैं, आर्टिकल्स भी शेयर करते हैं, सो यू कैन जॉइन दैट एज वेल. इसी के साथ साथ यहाँ पर कहीं पर इजी पैसा जैस का इशारा होगा. इफ यू लाइक टू सपोर्ट द चैनल, वी एक्सेप्ट एनीथिंग फ्रॉम ₹1 to as much as you'd like. It's the thought that counts. But anyways, this was Syed Muzammil Hassan Zaidi. You are watching Thought Behind Things. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.